It's kind of one big made. It's like one. It's the same process for you. That's kind of what you're saying?
It just gives me the same feeling, more to say. I know how the bass should be hitting. I know when something's too edgy. I know when I crank my speakers what it should sound like, and when I duck them how it should sound like. So it's just that sort of familiarity that I go, okay, this will sound good out. But that said, like if it's pop, EDM, sometimes even like that sort of trappier hip hop, I'll get that right straight out of the box. For more experimental stuff, where we got like more acoustic instruments, more folky sort of stuff, or things are going a bit really weird, like, you know, those sort of genres where they try and explore really creative textures and dynamics, that's sort of when I'm more pulling towards having mastering engineers on board, because as much as I know the sound of my room, I really want fresh perspective, because it's territory I don't really explore all that often as a mixing engineer.
Got it. So you know your genres well enough to kind of do both of them. And then if it's a different genre, then you'll kind of like bring a second set of ears on board.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so like I'm assuming if you're doing mixing and mastering maybe simultaneously, you're kind of setting the levels. That's like maybe the first thing you're doing, or am I mistaken?
Once the balance is right, so I'm not talking EQ or compression, but just the internal balance. Once the volume is the balance of the channels are all right, and the volumes of the bass and the kick and the vocals are sitting right to me, I'll then go straight top down. I like to go top down thereafter. I don't like to start tweaking things individually. I like to, okay, this balance is good. My bass is as loud as I want it. My snare is as loud as I want it. It's all doing what I want to. How's the tone? It's overall a bit dull. It's overall a bit bright. It's not boomy enough. It's too boomy. Okay, master bus, let's EQ that. Let's get that sound the way we want. Dynamically, is the bass moving? What's actually happening dynamically? Okay, it's moving around too much. It's not moving around enough. You know, like, how do I get it pumping? I'm just thinking about these things. And then once all that's sort of done, I'm like, okay, I do it quite conservatively. I'm not too aggressive on the mix bus, because I don't want to really fuck with the vibe of it that hard that it starts sounding a bit weird. So I do that pretty conservatively. And then from there I go, okay, I've taken this as far as I can here. Now let's chunk it down a little bit. Okay, what about on my buses? Can I do anything on my drum bar? And I sort of like to go top down, because if you get into the nitty gritty of, or what I find because this is specific to me and my experiences, when I get into the nitty gritty of individual channels and start, you know, fucking with what's going on in them, I feel like you can lose a lot of essence and, like you said, perspective on what's going on. So trying to keep it top down and focus on the bigger chunks tends to work really well for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm assuming you have like a ton of buses and auxiliary channels, and you have it all. Do you have it all templated?
Oh yeah, I have it all templated. I was such a dickhead when I started. I didn't. But no, for the last 3-4 years, I've had it templated, and that template always evolves. But it's just like the template literally makes me smash through my mixes like crazy, because I know what has to be where. Oh, I need a reverb? No worries, just bypass this reverb send. Okay, cool, I got a reverb there. I got a snare reverb. I got fucking whatever I want, just at a click of a finger without having to add channels and shit. It's good. Nice.
Do you have any interesting techniques that you find yourself doing? I guess I was going to ask you in mastering, but you could say also mastering and also mixing.
I don't know. I'm very, very, very conscious of making the mono signal really sound amazing. Because I know, I'll explain. I think a lot of mastering engineers it wouldn't be anything specific to me, but this is probably a good learning experience for anybody listening. So the way I think of the mono signal are the physics of the speakers. Okay, so if everything's in phase, everything's working together, you're getting the speakers working in uniform. That's why you get a really punchy sound if you keep something in mono. If everything's down the center, it's more stronger, because both the speakers are working those positive and negative pulses in sync with one another. Okay? So I'm getting a bit sciencey here. So if you get your mono signal, you might never get your mono signal to sound perfect, but if you can get that balance, that raw energy coming out of the mono signal to sound like a well-balanced finished record, because sometimes you flick to mono and you're getting holes everywhere. Okay, what do I have to do with this mono signal? Okay, I need a little bit more low mids. The top end's sort of lackluster because that was all the shine in the side, so I've got to add a little bit of top end or whatever it might be. Or the mid-range is too harsh and you take it out of the mid so it's a bit more even. you get that mono signal tight from the get-go. Then when you fold out to stereo, it just pulls out of the speaker. At least for me, that's how I'm sort of thinking of it. As I said, most mastering engineers are trying to get that sounding tight anyway. It's just the way I think about it, that I like to sort of put forward to people, because people don't really consider the way the physics of how speakers and playback systems work when they're thinking about their masters. And that's just one simple thing. Mixing wise, I'm going to bounce around pretty quickly because I sort of get bored with all this technical shit. I'm doing it all day. So mixing wise, anything I do interesting? Not really. Like the one thing I find that people sort of a little bit contentious of is that not my clients, but other engineers and other mixers, they always, not always, but a lot of people ask for dry stems, or stems without compression, or stems without EQ, or stems that have been normalized, and I'm like, fuck it, like, if this is something I say, I'm like, did you spend hours and days and weeks, if not months, producing this? Yeah, I did. Cool. I love it. You put all that work in it, give me that work, and I'll move forward with it. Unless something's really fucked up, and if something's that fucked up, I probably wouldn't be working on the project in the first place. But, given that it's spent all that time on that record trying to craft a sound, trying to put something together, why am I going to tell you to destruct all that work? Yeah. And throw it out? It's like, no, keep it. Give it to me like that. I don't care.
You'll just polish it up.
It's just, I'm meant to be mixing their production, not producing their arrangement and then remixing it. It's like,
right,
they spend all that time putting those cool delays and effects, and sometimes I even get all the vocals stacked in one, and they've got this awesome reverb on it which I could never recreate, not because I'm shit at my job, just because they've put something together which really resembles the emotion and vibe of the record. I get vocals with wet stems with huge reverbs on them, and yeah, it just that's the way I work. Some mixing engineers don't like that. They want all this creative responsibility because they think they can do a better job. That's actually how I've seen it on some people's places. Like they'll say, oh, I can achieve that reverb better, or I can achieve that delay better. It's like, well, fuck off. It doesn't matter if it's better or not. It's like, that's what the client creatively wanted, was going for, unless they say otherwise.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm trying to remember which guest told me this, and I can't at the moment, but a recent guest told me that they were sending off mixes to like the top mixing engineers like Michael Brower, and they were also doing the same thing. They just, give it to me wet. I want to see how I want the production, how the production is. Yeah. Same exact thing you were saying. Yeah,
it's just the way it feels good. It's that's like a lot of mixing engineers complain that their clients have demo-itis. It's like they're falling in love with the demo. They don't like my mix. It's like, no, that's not a fucking demo. It's their art they've given you. Like that. Fucking work with it. You should make the best version of their fucking demo you can.
Yeah.
If you're sort of getting what I'm saying, because it represents a lot of raw energy that they were thinking about. Why did they have the bass louder? Why did they have it softer? Why did they do a certain thing? Don't get too technical about it. It's just purely based off what emotionally they were feeling from that music. It might not have been the perfect mix, but where they're starting from is a real representation of musically what they're trying to achieve.
Love it. So it's all about the artist's intent for you. I guess that's like your philosophy behind the mixing.
Yeah, I'm not, as I said, not super technical. Fuck the technical shit. Like, it has its purpose. You're meant to know fundamentals for the sake of your job, because if things go out wrong, you're in a fucking lot of trouble. But otherwise, I don't know how to put it. It's music. Like, it's the same reason you got into it. The reason why you continued playing an instrument when you started learning it young, or you listened to a certain record. It's because you enjoy it. I just don't like people who overcomplicate it. Not that I don't like the person. I don't like the idea of overcomplicating the process.
Yeah. I love it, man. So what are your thoughts on the loudness war, and I guess the state of the industry in terms of that?
Oh, man. I'm not going to go deep on this, other than it's just a fucking bunch of bullshit. In terms of like the normalization and all that sort of crap, it's hodgepodge, it's crap. You send a master off to any music supervisor at a label, any fucking manager worth their 2 bits, they're going to fucking shoot it down if you send them at -14. I'm not going to, like, you can, if you want me to dig further, you can ask me specific questions, but other than that, it's just to me and my experiences in the actual industry, not on fucking blogs. It's make shit fucking sound good. Like, if it sounds good, that's what people are going to love. And if that means fucking cranking it, you know, crank it.
So it's like it could be super dynamic or super loud as long as that's the right master for that record, basically.
Depends. If you're doing pop, EDM, contemporary sort of production style, you want it to be loud. Okay? You don't want it to be slammed and distorted and crunch, but you just want it to be loud and hold itself. Because, put it this way, somebody who's not super technical, you go to an A&R, okay? They're not super technical. They get their emails, they get a Dropbox link, they download, they get a private SoundCloud link, they press play. You know, all they care is that it stands out. They're not going to be normalizing it and going on fucking looking at the LUFS meter and all their other shit. They're just going to listen to it and go, do I vibe this? So, yeah. It's not. I can't go super deep on it because it's just. I'm only speaking off my experience. A lot of other people are really well read on it, and they read all the fucking Spotify guidelines and other shit. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, you know, fucking find me a -14 LUFS record in the top 10.
Word, man. Point taken. So do you have any practices to stay fresh and creative in the space? Like, how do you come in every day and give it 100%?
I give it 100% because it's just fucking like breathing now for me. That's like literally I get up in the morning, okay, mastering records, mixing records, okay, got my admin to do, it's just like an ecosystem at the moment. In terms of getting better, something I'm actually doing now is really fucking tough and it's tough for me. It's taking me a lot of balls to do this, but I think, you know, I'm benefiting from it. When I finish a project, once the dust is sort of settled, not straight after the honeymoon period, yeah? So, you know, finish a project, because you always get those emails, oh, I fucking love the master, I love it, blah, 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 blah. You know, I love the mix, and, you know, then you don't hear from them for a while. I give it a little bit of time for the dust to settle. Then I send out an email and I say, hey guys, I want to have a heart-to-heart. I want to get better at what I'm doing. I want to learn how do I do on this project. This is the ballsy part, not that part. It's going, leave me a review of your experiences on Google Reviews, you know, like, let me know. And basically what I'm doing is, if somebody thinks I'm shit, they can go on there and give me 1 star. But a lot of people are courteous, they're not dicks, so to speak, and they'll send back a few thoughts and comments. 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, super positive. Once or twice, people have come back and they've given good criticisms, and I've learned from them. And that's how I learn. It's by just...
And it's all public on Google.
No. They can choose to put on Google. They don't. As I said, people tend to be a bit nice if they're going to have a touchy subject, or if you show yourself to be more vulnerable. And what's really interesting, one of the times somebody came back with sort of not an issue, but just sort of something they wanted to bring to my attention, I resolved it there and then. So any resentment or anything they might have held towards me was completely flames put out. And it was the oddest thing. It was that because I try and post all my records that I work on. And mind you, last Friday I had 11 records come out which I worked on in one day.
That's crazy.
So I try and post everyone, and they said, look, you didn't post about my record. I felt like my record wasn't good enough, or you didn't value my project as much as others. And I'm like, look, I'm really sorry. I didn't get the pre-save link. I try and pre-save everything I put out, and dust was settled. You know what I mean? Another one was more direct. It was like, hey, you took a little bit long to get back to me with revisions and whatnot. And by their standard, I'm talking less than a day. So they'd email me throughout the day. I'd get back to them the next day. So and I was like, oh, okay, I can't really fix that. But I learned something from there. And the thing that I learned was, okay, I'm going to set up an email little template. If I get an email and I can't respond straight away, I just quickly send it off saying, hey, got your email. So at least that way they feel acknowledged whenever their feedback is coming in, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's how I improve myself. I just go, hey, tell me how it is. Give it to me real.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like everything that you're doing is about keeping the communication like super transparent and super, you know, both ways. Everyone's able to communicate in either direction.
Yeah. It's put it this way. That's the way I've got the infrastructure set up. It's not as involved as what it might seem though, because put it this way. Somebody sends me an email that's too long. Hey, let's take a call. That's all I have to fucking write. You know, I have to set up some feedback. I got something keyed in. It's already cached in my pre-written emails, and it gets sent out. Somebody